Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Strange Mind 6. I'm your host, Ruby, and I hope that you guys are doing amazing. And wherever you guys are, I hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, or night. And we're going to be continuing our book of The Book of the Bizarre, Freaky Facts and Strange Stories by Varla Ventura. Now, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, or you could just sit back, relax, and let's get right into it, shall we? The Ghost Ship. Nautical lore is rife with stories of ghost ships. One of the oldest and most celebrated of these stories, the tale of the Sarah, started with a lover's quarrel. The year was 1812, and two young sailors, George Leverett and Charles Jose, set out from their native Portland, Maine, to South Freeport to build and stock a ship they planned to use for trading in the Indies. It was there that the pair met and fell in love with Sarah Soule. Both men vied for the lady's attention, but in the end it was Leverett who won her hand in marriage. Dejected and angry, Jose disappeared. It wasn't until Leverett was married and his rig, the Sarah, was sailing due south that Jose reemerged as captain of an unmarked ship that was trailing the Sarah. Spooked, Leverett and his crew changed course, hoping to report Jose to the British Admiralty, but they never made it. Jose's ship fired its cannons, killing all the other ship's crew and nearly sinking the Sarah. Miraculously, Leverett was not killed, so the vengeful Jose jumped onto the deck of the Sarah, tied the captain to the mast, and set him out to sea. Leverett resigned himself to death. He was floating on an open sea in an unmanned and badly damaged vessel. It was then that the truly astonishing began to happen. Leverett watched horrified as his crew slowly came back to life, resuming their posts one by one. The pale and silent crew then started guiding the ship towards home. Leverett lost consciousness. The ghost crew sailed the ship safely all the way to Potts Point, Wales. Onlookers from the shore reported that one foggy day a dilapidated but fully rigged ship materialized from the gloom and came to a full stop. An apparently lifeless man was then lowered from the ship onto a smaller boat and rowed to shore. The crew, silent and pallid, never said a word. Once their cargo was safely laid on a rock, they returned to the ship and slowly sailed away. The ship was never seen again. Captain Leverett regained consciousness and lived to tell the tale. Wow. Yeah, you guys gotta be careful. You never know, who's jealous, and jealousy can lead to some crazy things. People honestly do crazy things when they're either, jealous, or they're just angry with you and they want some type of revenge. So truly be careful. British witches stop Hitler's army. When he learned that Adolf Hitler planned to invade England, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain went to Munich, Germany in September 1938 to stop him. He returned to England with a treaty declaring there would be peace for our time. Widely accused of appeasing the Nazi, he was voted out of office. A year later, when Hitler invaded Poland, World War II happened. It began in May and June of 1940. The British Expeditionary Force was nearly crushed by the Nazi army. What saved them was that Winston Churchill called a miracle of deliverance. More than 300,000 men were rescued from the coastal town of Dunkirk, France, and brought back across the English Channel by English civilians in every kind of boat, yacht, fishing boats, pleasure boats, even rowboats. On July 31st, 1940, it is said that English witches gathered in the New Forest in New Hampshire and raised a monument cone of power to stop Hitler's forces. It is also said that the well-known witch Gerald Gardner and his coven joined this grand coven. 5 of Gardner's coveners died a few days later. Gardner reported that he had been weakened by the energy. The Salem Witch Trials. It all began in Salem, Massachusetts, in January of 1692, when 2 girls, Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams, began to show unusual symptoms, screaming, convulsions, and trance-like behaviors. The doctor declared that their fits could only mean that the girls were under the influence of witches. Soon, many girls throughout Salem were complaining of similar symptoms. They jumped into holes, crept under chairs, and contorted their bodies in all kinds of odd ways. Others, especially in the company of one particular minister, would make odd sounds, and some even pulled burning logs from fireplaces and threw them around the room. People prayed, people fasted. The fits continued anyway. Fingers were pointed to the weakest and strangest of the village, such as Tituba, a slave from Barbados, Sarah Good, a beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an old bedridden woman. But as panic grew and the fits continued, more people were accused of being witches, including the good wife Proctor, whose husband was a successful farmer and tavern keeper. Also accused was Martha Corey, the wife of a farmer and landowner, the governor's wife, and even Dorcas Good, a 4-year-old girl. A special court was established in Salem to hear the cases against the accused, and the trials began in June. Bridget Bishop was the first to be tried and hanged. In the end, hundreds were accused, and 150 were imprisoned and chained to the prison walls. In all, 25 people were executed, and more perished in prison. Wow. Killing witches. We all know that witches were burned at the stake, but it turns out that in Salem, Massachusetts, the famous witchcraft capital of New England, other methods were preferred. 25 witches died in Salem, 19 by hanging, 4 died waiting in prison, and 1 was crushed to death using large stones. But we all know there was more. I dislike hearing about that because of the simple fact that they were innocent people. But let's continue on, shall we? A truly terrible TV moment. The host of a talk show in Florida, Christine Chubbuck, signed off her show. I'm going to give a trigger warning now for suicide. So if you guys are triggered, please change the video and go ahead and watch one of my other videos. But yeah, I don't read these short stories ahead of time. I read it and react at the same time, with you guys. So what you guys are hearing is my honest reaction. But we're gonna continue this, and again, this is a trigger warning for suicide. A terrible TV moment. The host of a talk show in Florida, Christine Chubbuck, signed off her show on July 15th, 1974, by remarking that her viewers were about to see a TV first. She then presented a gun and killed herself on camera. And again, everybody, if you guys are still listening, and you really need help or you need somebody to talk to, please, call the 1-800-SUICIDE hotline number, or, talk to somebody that, you can trust, or an adult that you can trust. But we're gonna get to the next story. Taking TV too seriously. A couple in Toronto fought so viciously over one of the prettier actresses on the TV sitcom Married with Children, Christina Applegate and Katie Siegel, that the wife slashed the husband in the crotch with a broken wine bottle. Wow. They eventually made up, only to get into the same fight again. The second time, she broke his shoulder and arm, and he stabbed her multiple times. Oh my goodness gracious. And all that just because they wanted to pretty much tell each other who was the prettiest actress. Guys, if it ever gets like that, yeah, run. Or leave that situation, leave that relationship. Bizarre and brutal royalty. Queen Christina of Sweden, who ruled in the 1600s, had a tiny problem. She was absolutely terrified of fleas. She was so afraid, in fact, that she commissioned the construction of a tiny cannon for her bed, which used to fire itty-bitty cannons at the pesky critters. No word on how good a shot she was, but apparently it was an activity that she spent hours per day on. Bloody Mary. Queen Mary I of England and Ireland, 1516 to 1558, was a Catholic who had Protestants tortured and killed. Her actions even inspired the nickname Bloody Mary, which in turn inspired the cocktail and, of course, the myth and legend of Bloody Mary and being in front of the mirror at night. Yeah, don't ever try that, you guys. You never know what can happen or who you're inviting in or what you're inviting in. One lucky flower. Russia's Catherine the Great, 1729 to 1796, once saw a primrose in her garden and fell in love with it, setting a guard over it to protect it from harm. Princess Delusional. When she was a child, Princess Alexandria of Bavaria, 1826 to 1875, became convinced that she had swallowed a grand piano. Well then. Enduring love. Spanish Queen Juana so loved her husband Philip that when he passed away in 1506, she kept his coffin with her for the rest of her life, refusing to allow him to be buried. No, no, that goes way too far. A deadly marriage. Princess Maria del Pozo de la Cisternos, 1867, wedding day was a bad one, but not because of fiancé Amadeo, the future king of Italy. It was everyone else that caused the trouble. Her wardrobe mistress did something to herself. The gatekeeper also did something. And then someone was caught under the wheels of the honeymoon train and passed away. An associate of the king fell from his horse to his death, and the best man hurt himself badly. And with that, my dear friends, we're going to end today's episode video. But, yeah, I don't know if I should go ahead and read some of these stories ahead of time, just so that way I can put a trigger warning before anything, or if I should just keep it raw and go ahead and not read it, but as I'm reading it with you guys, that would be my first time reading it. I want to know what do you guys think, and what are your opinions on it. Just leave a comment down below, and I'll definitely get back to you guys. But with that being said, this is Ruby signing off.